It was a Sunday like any other, or so I thought. The light coming through my kitchen window was soft and warm, the kind that made the walls feel familiar, almost forgiving. I'd made tea, put on a fresh blouse, and even turned on the good lamp for better lighting. Nathan always said the lighting in my dining room made me look tired. I tried to fix that, though it never seemed to matter to him anymore. The screen flickered to life, and there they were, Nathan and Sienna, side by side at the kitchen table of their sleek Portland home. He waved and smiled. She nodded politely, her lips tugging into a smile that never quite reached her eyes. We talked about nothing important, groceries, a new recipe I'd tried. Sienna barely said a word, only chiming in when prompted. I pretended not to notice. I was getting used to pretending. At some point, Nathan excused himself to take a work call. He left the camera on. I stayed sipping my tea, hoping Sienna might open up if it were just the two of us. Then I heard it. "I can't stand her," she said, her voice drifting in from off-camera. "She just inserts herself like she owns everything." My breath caught. I didn't move. I didn't blink. "She's not coming back here. I don't care what Nathan says." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. And then, as if to drive the knife in deeper, she added, "Honestly, it's like having a second mother, and not in a good way." The video call ended a few minutes later with Nathan returning and acting as though nothing had happened. I smiled through the rest of it, said I loved them, waved, as if I hadn't just overheard the truth. That night, the text came, "Evelyn, please call before you visit. It's better that way." No punctuation. No explanation. I read it twice. 3 times. My throat tightened, not from anger, but something worse, recognition. I wasn't welcome in my son's house. And I didn't know when or how that had happened. But I would find out. After Leo died, the house got too quiet, too fast. The silence settled into the corners like dust, heavy and untouched. Nathan was only 21 then, finishing college on the East Coast. I told him not to come home right away. His father would have wanted him to stay focused, I said out loud. Inside, I was desperate to keep his life moving forward. Even as mine came to a full stop, I handled the funeral alone. I buried my husband alone. I signed the paperwork, paid the bills, kept the company running quietly in the background, alone. No one asked if I needed help, and I never offered them the chance. I poured everything into Nathan. Tuition, rent, the down payment on his first home. When he graduated, I bought him a tailored suit and stood in the back of the auditorium while he shook hands with people who had no idea what it took to get him there. I never told him how close I'd come to selling the beach house, or how many times I skipped meals to keep the business above water in the early years. I didn't want him to owe me anything. That was the rule I lived by. When he brought Sienna home for the first time, I felt hopeful. She was polished, articulate, ambitious. Everything I thought Nathan needed in a partner. She asked me thoughtful questions, complimented my cooking, even laughed at my old stories. I believed she was kind. I believed she was genuine. I didn't notice when the shift began. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, a receding of space. Phone calls that grew shorter. Holidays that became optional. Gifts that felt performative. She started referring to me in the third person during conversations I was part of. "Nathan, did your mother say she was coming?" I had a name, but somehow it was easier to remove me that way. I held back. I kept things light. I didn't want to be the intrusive mother-in-law. I told myself that love, when offered gently, would never be mistaken for control. But love offered gently can disappear completely, if no one is looking. And that's exactly what was happening. It started with skipped holidays. First Thanksgiving. Nathan said they were keeping things simple. Then Christmas. Sienna had booked a couple's retreat in Sedona. Something about needing time to reset. I told them it was fine. Of course. I even mailed gifts early, wrapped in gold ribbon and careful handwriting, as if care could fill the growing absence. Phone calls turned into voicemails. Texts were read, but not answered. I'd leave a message about a new recipe or an article I thought Nathan might like. Days would pass without a word. When he did reply, it was short, polite, surface level. Thanks, Mom. Busy week. I'll call soon. He never did. I stopped by once, unannounced. I was in the neighborhood. Or so I told myself. Sienna opened the door with that practiced smile, tight, bright, and cold around the edges. Oh, she said, stepping halfway out as if to block the view inside. You should have called. Nathan's not feeling well. He's resting. I won't stay, I offered. Just wanted to drop off some soup. She took it like it was a burden. Thank you, she said, as if she meant goodbye. Later that week, I got a call, not from Nathan, but from her. Evelyn, I hope you understand. You're always dropping in unannounced, and Nathan's been stressed lately. He needs space. It's not healthy for us to have so many outside influences right now. Outside influences. I stood in my own kitchen, hearing those words, wondering when I'd become a threat to my son's peace. I said I understood. What else was I supposed to say? I didn't tell her that I'd noticed the way Nathan looked at the floor when I entered a room now, or how he deferred to her, even in the smallest things. What to eat, when to speak, what was appropriate. I didn't mention that the photos on their walls no longer included any of me. I didn't push back. Not yet. But I saw the shape of what was happening. She wasn't asking for boundaries. She was building them, high, wide, and permanent. And Nathan, whether he saw it or not, was letting her pour the cement. I had loved them both in good faith. But now I needed to see the truth with clear eyes. Sienna used to talk about her job like it was a kingdom she was quietly conquering. She'd bring it up at dinners, casually slipping in phrases like, I had to rework the entire project budget myself, or upper management always leans on me when things get messy. Nathan would look at her with pride. I would smile, nod, ask polite follow-ups. She worked at Moreno and Company, the same construction firm my husband and I built from scratch before he died. After Leo passed, I made myself invisible. I reorganized the company under a trust, placed Marcus Tron, our most trusted accountant, in charge of day-to-day operations. I disappeared from the paperwork, at least the kind that mattered to anyone paying surface-level attention. Sienna didn't know the name on the ownership records. She didn't know who approved the budgets, who reviewed every high-level hire, who signed off on the vendor contracts she manipulated. She didn't know the company belonged to me. I never needed recognition. I needed clarity. After Leo's death, I learned that wealth made people eager, and visibility made me a target. So I stayed behind the curtain, pulling strings no one knew I held. I watched. I listened. I let people reveal themselves. Sienna had revealed herself. Every time she made me feel like an inconvenience. Every time she locked me out of my own son's life. She did it while cashing checks I authorized. While building a lifestyle on a foundation I laid with my own hands. It would have been easy to remind her. One sentence. One moment of revelation. But I didn't, because I needed to see who she'd become when she thought I was powerless. Now I saw clearly. I'd let her climb. Let her decorate her little throne. Let her believe she was outmaneuvering everyone around her. Because when the time came to pull the rug out, I wanted her to feel every inch of the fall. And that time was coming. I called Marcus the next morning. He'd worked with Leo and me for over 20 years. Our most trusted accountant. The only person besides me who knew the truth about the company's ownership. He'd never asked why I kept it hidden, only followed instructions, meticulous and loyal. Marcus, I said, my voice steady. I need you to look into one of our own. Quietly. He didn't ask why. Just said, give me a name. Sienna Moreno. There was a pause. Give me a week. He didn't need that long. 4 days later, we sat in my sunroom with a folder thick enough to make my hands ache. Inside, purchase orders with inflated numbers. Vendor contracts from obscure shell suppliers, companies that didn't exist 2 years ago, with rates far exceeding market norms. Most damning of all, expense reports listing client meetings in Aspen and Napa Valley, conveniently scheduled during long weekends. She's smart, Marcus said, but not careful. I nodded, barely hearing him. I flipped through page after page, each one a piece of the mask she wore, falling away. The same woman who told me I was disruptive had no issues siphoning funds from the very business that paid for her marble countertops and imported wine tastings. Then there was the digital trail. I created a burner social account and followed Sienna's professional profile under a false name. The curated captions spoke for themselves, taking bigger swings this quarter. Some of us don't wait to be chosen. We build our own ladders. One post showed her at a business conference I never approved travel for, tagged with a future competitor. One email, forwarded to me anonymously. With the right connections and leverage, I'll be in charge sooner than people expect. She wasn't just posturing. She was maneuvering. And she was using my money to do it. I said nothing. I didn't confront her. Not yet. This wasn't a moment for rage or dramatic gestures. It was about information. Quiet. Complete. Damning. Because this wasn't just arrogance. It wasn't even just fraud. It was theft of trust. Of position. Of family. And I had spent too many years building both to let someone like her dismantle them unchecked. I closed the folder and looked at Marcus. "Thank you," I said. "Now I know exactly what she's playing at. And I know exactly how to play her back." It had been over a decade since I last walked the halls of Moreno and Company as anything more than a name on a document. The faces were different now, younger, hungrier, but the bones of the place remained. The company Leo and I built with nothing but grit and late nights had become something solid, respected. And she had no idea it was mine. Marcus arranged everything. A brief internal memo went out. "Evelyn Hartman has been appointed strategic advisor from the ownership trust." No title, no explanation, just enough formality to keep people guessing, and enough ambiguity to keep Sienna off balance. I started quietly, one-on-ones with department leads, requests for updated project pipelines, cost analysis reports, vendor audits. I smiled, asked soft questions, made careful notes. No one saw what I was doing, especially not her. When Sienna finally walked into the conference room for our scheduled meeting, she was all polish and posture, tailored blazer, manicured nails, pleasant smile. "Evelyn," she said, extending her hand. "We finally meet in person." "Nice to put a face to the emails," I replied, shaking her hand. Hers was warm, but stiff. Controlled. "I heard you've been sitting in on some of the ops meetings," she said, settling into the seat across from me. "Just trying to understand the rhythm of things. Get a clearer picture of how the pieces move." She nodded, flipping open her tablet. "Well, I'm happy to walk you through my current portfolio. I'm managing 5 projects, 3 of which are in final stage development." I let her talk. She spoke in numbers, deadlines, timelines, team dynamics. She liked being listened to. She liked holding the floor. "You must be stretched thin," I said at one point. "All that responsibility." She gave a half smile. "It's a challenge, but I thrive under pressure." I leaned in slightly. "Have you ever thought about starting your own firm?" Her eyes flickered. "Actually, yes. I've been toying with the idea. I've built a lot of good relationships here. I know which clients trust me. The only thing missing is the right opening." I smiled. "Ambition looks good on you." She took it as a compliment. She had no idea she'd just admitted to grooming my clients for her next move. The meeting ended with pleasantries. She walked out thinking she'd impress me. I walked out knowing she'd shown me exactly where to cut. Asked Nathan to meet me for coffee one afternoon. Neutral ground. I chose a quiet cafe we used to visit when he was in high school, back when conversations between us didn't feel like tiptoeing across glass. He looked tired, or maybe just distracted. He kissed my cheek, sat down, and scrolled his phone until I gently cleared my throat. "I've been thinking," I began, "about how distant things feel lately." He offered a careful smile. "You and Sienna just need more time." She's not trying to be rude. She's just private. Private. I nodded. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "Okay," he said, hesitating. "What do you need to ask? Do you think I'm disruptive? When I visit, when I call, do you feel like I'm intruding?" He looked down at his hands, rubbed his thumb over his ring. The silence stretched. I think, he said slowly, sometimes you and Sienna don't understand each other. You come from different places. That's not an answer. He didn't look up. I watched him struggle for the right thing to say. Or maybe just the safest thing. I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way he folded inward. Not toward me, not toward her, but into some quiet place where he wouldn't have to decide. He hadn't chosen her over me. That much I understood. He had chosen silence. And silence has consequences. I sat back, finished my coffee, and changed the subject. I knew there was no point in pressing further. Not yet. Not while he was still trying so hard to believe that nothing was wrong. But something was. And soon, he would see it for himself. The boardroom was quiet when I walked in, sunlight washing over the long table where every senior staff member sat waiting. Marcus was already there, folders lined up neatly before him. I nodded once and took my seat at the head. Thank you all for coming, I said. We won't take much time today, but there are matters that need to be addressed, matters that affect this company at its core. I opened the first folder and slid it forward. Here, I said, are records of payments authorized to a vendor called Hartwell Logistics, a supplier with no physical office, no tax ID history prior to last year, and pricing that exceeds standard rates by more than 40%. A rustle of paper followed. I opened another folder. Here is the purchase of a private condo in Lake Tahoe, listed under the name of a consulting firm created 3 months ago. That firm's invoices appear here as billable project expenses. A third folder. And these are the vendor registration documents, signed with a name not legally authorized to act on behalf of Moreno and Company. I looked up. All eyes were on me now, except one. Sienna shifted in her seat, but kept her posture intact. These are serious allegations, she said evenly. I assume your attorneys will be hearing from mine. I turned to her. You used my company, my name, and you lied to my son. She froze. Nathan, seated just left of center, blinked as if the room had suddenly turned upside down. Mom, he said quietly. What is this? I looked at him, not unkindly. It's the truth. All of it. And I waited for you to see it on your own. But I ran out of time. Sienna straightened. This is personal. You're retaliating because of family issues. You don't have the authority. I do, I said. I always have. I stood. You work for me, Sienna. And now you don't. There was no shouting. No one moved. Just the sound of breath being held and a silence thick with disbelief. And in that stillness, the mask she'd worn so easily began to crack. Sienna left the company in silence. No lawsuit. No statement. Just a resignation letter passed through legal and a formal report filed for financial misconduct. I didn't see her again after that day in the boardroom. Nathan stayed in their home for a while, the home I helped him buy. He said very little. I said even less. Weeks later, he packed a suitcase and moved into a one-bedroom rental across the river. No explanation. Just a text. I need space. He came by once, early in the morning when the kitchen light still felt like memory. He looked thinner, older. I don't know what to feel, he said. You've been funding my life, watching everything, and I never knew. I poured him coffee. You knew what you needed to. I didn't want your love to feel like a transaction. He didn't touch the cup. But why didn't you tell me who you really were? I met his eyes. Because I was hoping you'd see who she really was first. He nodded slowly, as if he already knew that was the answer, and hated it anyway. He left a few minutes later. No hug. No anger. Just a quiet man carrying the weight of everything that had come undone. I didn't try to stop him. Sometimes you have to let someone break so they can rebuild themselves without illusion. And sometimes, the most brutal truths are the ones we wait too long to say aloud. I told myself I did it to protect him, and that's mostly true. But now, in the stillness that's followed, I can't admit the rest. I wanted her to feel it, not just the consequences. The shame. The embarrassment of being caught by someone she thought irrelevant. I wanted her to know exactly who had pulled the ground out from under her. I didn't enjoy it, But I didn't stop it either. And I don't regret it. Nathan is rebuilding slowly. He started therapy. He joined a community garden. He sends me short messages, check-ins, updates, neutral and polite. We haven't had a real conversation in months. There are cracks between us now. Hairline fractures that may never close. And I can't tell if I made them better or worse. Sometimes late at night, I sit by the window and wonder, when does protection become control? When does silence turn into manipulation? Did I save my son from a life built on deceit? Or did I just remove his right to figure it out on his own? And if I'd stayed quiet, would I have lost him anyway? If this story moved you, if you've ever been erased by your own family, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs courage. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to protect your child from their partner? Where are you watching from? Thank you for listening. And remember, a mother's love isn't silence. It's action.